Hi everyone, I'm Joanna. Welcome back to my channel in All Seasons Homestead. Today I'm going to be canning some beans. It's something that I usually do in the month of January or February, but I'm a little behind this year. So since I have to can some beans, I thought I might as well take you along with me. I'm going to be canning pinto beans, black beans, red beans, and garbanzo beans, which are all the same process, and I'm going to show you how I like to do it. So this is how my grandma used to do it, and that's how I've been doing it for years. I have used my ball book, and the difference is you soak your beans or you'll cook your beans part way. I find that it becomes very mushy, so what I do is I pack my jars with dry beans, and then I'll show you how I process them. I want to start by having your jars washed, clean, and sanitized, and I am using pints today. I have a little saucepan to warm up my lids and some canning tools. This is white vinegar, salt, and a clean rag. And I'm also using my 9-pint canner and a 7-pint canner. Here I'm going to open my black beans up and measure them out. You want a half a cup per pint, and this is a 1 cup measuring scoop, so I'm just going to measure out 1 cup at a time, so that's 2 pints per cup. If you are wanting to just focus on one variety of beans at a time, like just pinto or just black beans, that's perfectly fine. I just decided to have a little bit of a mix of everything to start off with. So the next step you're going to do is thoroughly wash your beans. Just keep an eye on your beans as you're washing. Make sure you don't see any little pebbles or pieces of rock in there. Now that my black beans are washed, I'm going to turn over my jars and get them ready. And I believe that the funnel is one supply that I did not have in my first video clip. So you want to make sure you have a funnel. It just makes the job a little easier, and you can go faster because it'll catch any beans. So you're going to add your half a cup per pint. I remember when I was a little kid, I used to watch my grandma sorting out dried beans. She was getting them ready to can or just to cook, and she would sit there with a bowl and just pick out little pebbles and sift through older beans. I don't know why that fascinated me when I was little. It's just something that I remember. And here I'm measuring out my pinto beans. That is 2 pints, 3 pints, and 4 pints. Again, that is a 1 cup measuring cup, and so it's 2 pints per cup. And again, I'm just going to wash off my beans and kind of sift around and look for anything. And if you're going to do quarts, then you'll want 1 cup of dried beans per quart, and then 1 teaspoon of salt per quart. I'm actually going to do quarts a different day. I just focused on pints for today, so it's all the same processing time. There's not much to canning beans. It's very basic and simple. It's just, measuring your beans, washing them, filling your jars, but it still takes a good part of the day. I did 2 rounds in each pot, and it still took me all day because you have to let your water and your pots warm up and start your timer, and then also let it cool down before you can even open the lid. So if you're wanting to do some pints or quarts, depending how big your canner is, you'll just have to know that it does take quite a while, even though you're not cooking or preparing or chopping or anything else. So it can still take a good part of your day. Here I am filling up my canners with water. My larger pot has a water line, so I just fill up my water to the line. And this is where I have seen and read that some people will put cold water in their canners and then cold water in their pint jars and then just bring it up slowly. And then other people will put warm water in their pots and then warm water in their beans. And either way, I think it's fine because you're bringing everything up at the same time to the similar temperature. But for beans, I usually just use warm water in my canner and then warm water in my jars of beans. And here I'm adding a half a teaspoon of salt to each jar, and salt is just your personal preference. If you like them saltier or even no salt, that is perfectly fine, but I just like to use a half a teaspoon per pint or a teaspoon per quart. And I'm going to use my line that I'm pointing to as my 1-inch headspace, and that was my tool just to confirm that that's 1-inch headspace. So those lines are actually a 1-inch headspace or a half an inch headspace. And make sure to check out my description below. I'm going to link the canning tools that I like and the canning tools I'm using, just to make your life simpler if you think that this is something that you want to try for the first time. And please comment below. I would like to know if any of you have canned beans before, or if you feel inspired and you would like to try this simple process. Just let me know down below. Or if you don't want to can beans, or you haven't canned beans and you're not really interested in beans, let me know down below what you have canned. So your next step is to use some kind of tool or a wooden spoon, and you're going to just stir your beans and get any air bubbles out. The next thing you want to do is grab your white vinegar, a clean rag, and maybe even a little bowl, and you're going to dip your rag in your white vinegar and just wipe off each jar just to make sure you don't have any salt or anything in your way. Sometimes just for beans, I just wipe it off with a dry clean rag, but today I'm just going to take an extra measure and use a little vinegar just to make sure the jars are very, very clean. The next thing I do is just pour my leftover vinegar into my canning pot and add just a little bit more vinegar. Usually 1 to 3 tablespoons is all I do, just to help with some calcium buildup. The next thing you want to do is grab your little saucepan and add your lids. And you may want to read your instructions to the lids, to the brand of lids that you buy. I know some people boil their lids to sanitize them. I just heat mine up. I don't boil them. I just get them nice and warm so the rubber seal is a little bit more squishy and soft. And then you will just add your lids to each jar plus your rings, and make sure you don't over tighten. I actually had a few lids today buckle, and I think I'll show you here in a little bit what that looks like. I thought they were just the brand of lids that I used this time, but I think that it happens from over tightening. I wasn't expecting that because I feel like my fingers are not that strong. I don't think I've ever had a lid buckle on me before, so I must have been just feeling really strong this day. After you get all your lids and rings on your jars, the next step, in my opinion, is the funnest part. You just place them in your canner. The processing time for pints is 75 minutes, and if you are doing quarts, it will be 90 minutes. Remember not to start your timer until the weight on top will start jiggling. I will show you in just a minute what that means if you're not familiar with it. You are going to let the steam run out for 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes, then you'll put your weight on. And then you will wait until your weight is jiggling consistently, and then you will start your timer. But I will show you just here in a minute what that will look like. Now that I have my 9-pint canner filled up, I'm going to put the lid on and let the water heat up. And then I will start working on the beans for the next canner. And these two canners will not be in sync as far as in their timing, their processing time, because my right side of my stove gets hot very quickly. My left side of the stove does not, plus the difference in size. But since my big one is started first, that is the first one that will be ready here shortly. Okay, while I'm working on these next pints, let's go ahead and review. Measure your beans 1/2 cup per pint, wash them, fill your jars with your 1/2 cup of beans, half a teaspoon of salt per pint. Take out all your air bubbles, wipe your jars clean, heat up your lids, then put your lids and rings on, and then start putting your jars in the canner. Another thing to think about before you start canning anything is to have the habit of checking your pressure canner over, especially if it's a used one or old. Check your rings to make sure there's no cracks, to make sure that they're still good looking. Maybe replace them if you need to before you set up everything for a nice canning day. So now that my lid is nice and tight, I am ready to turn up the heat on the smaller one, and I'm going to crank up the heat just a little bit more on my larger one. And then right here, I don't know if you can see it very well. I was having trouble recording it, but I have a nice steady flow of steam. When you see that nice steady flow of steam, that's when you'll start your timer for 10 minutes. You'll let that steam run out, and then you'll place your weight on top. And this is what it looks like when it starts rocking, and that is when you start your timer for pints 75 minutes. And like I said before, for quarts, it is 90 minutes. Another thing you'll want to check is your weight. For my area, I use 10 pounds of weight. And just remember to be patient. There's quite a lot of waiting to do between each step. You have to wait for your water to warm up, then you have to wait 10 minutes for your steam, and then you have to wait a while for your weight to start rocking. So between each step, it could actually take, minutes to 30 minutes or more. So right there, I don't know if you noticed, but I pointed to that little valve that's sticking up, and I pointed to my weight. My large canner the time has stopped. It's done. 75 minutes is over. I let it cool down for a few minutes, and then I take it off the heat. But you don't even need to take off your weight until that little pressure valve drops down. And right there, that's the pressure valve. And then you can also just test it. If no steam comes out, then you can take your weight off. I just leave it a while to let it cool down completely before I even think about opening the lid. So now that it's been a while, the valve has dropped, there's no steam coming out from under the weight. I just gently take off the lid, and remember, it's very important to let it cool down for a while before you touch that lid. It does take a while. So then I'll remove the lid, and then the best part is removing your jars. And if you think that it's all over, that your project is done for the day, that the last step is removing your jars, then you are wrong. If you are a beginner, just know that after you remove your jars, there's a few more things that you'll have to watch for to make sure that your jars seal properly before you can store them. But at this point, remove your jars very carefully. Try not to touch the band or the ring, and you'll just put them on a towel and let them cool down for a while. Sometimes immediately, or minutes, or even a while after taking the jars out, you will begin to hear popping. That is the lid sealing. If the lid has a bubble on top and you can push it up and down, that means it is not sealed. I would just leave it alone, let it cool down until you hear the pop noise. And right here is what I was talking about, one of those lids that buckled due to over tightening. I usually leave my jars sitting on the table overnight, make sure they're all cooled down, and then I'll double check the lids by the morning, and then they are ready to store. I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and I hope that I made this look fun and simple, and thank you all so much again for watching. See you next time.